Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus and Publius Valerius Falto, Consuls 238 BCE. Publius Valerius Falto was a patrician from one of Rome's most famous families and the brother of Quintus Valerius Falto, who held the patrician consulship in 239. Thus, a Valerius Falto held the consulship for 2 consecutive years, which was unusual even in a world where both brothers who were close in age often both succeeded in winning election to the consulship. The plebeian consul for 238 was Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus. Although men from the gens Sempronia had held the consulship and even the censorship in the past, Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus was the first member of the Gracchus branch of the family to reach the consulship. Going into the consular year 238, it must have seemed unlikely that either Valerius or Gracchus would have many opportunities to achieve glory. The First Punic War had just ended 3 years earlier, and it does not appear that most Romans were clamoring for another major conflict so soon after just having concluded a 23-year war. However, both men would end up receiving opportunities to gain distinction before their year in office had ended. Italy north of the Po River had not yet been conquered by the Romans. One of Rome's major undertakings in the years between the First and Second Punic Wars would be subjugating this area, and it appears that they had wasted little time getting started once peace with Carthage had been secured. In 238, the Boii, a Celtic tribe in the area, formed an alliance with the Ligures and some other Celtic groups to challenge Roman claims to the area. This crisis would demand the attention of a consular army. Meanwhile, in Africa, Carthage's woes had not ceased with the end of hostilities against the Romans. The combination of losing their holdings in Sicily and being forced to pay a war indemnity to Rome meant that Carthage was bankrupt. Worse still, Carthage employed mercenary armies, and they had all been recalled to North Africa to await payment and discharge. When it became clear that their pay was not forthcoming, the mercenaries revolted with some support from disaffected non-Punic populations in the area in what became known as the Mercenary War, the Libyan War, or perhaps most aptly, the Truceless War. True to the name Truceless War, this conflict was characterized by the common exchange of atrocities and the refusal of either side to offer quarter to surrendering men. The Truceless War had been raging since 241, and it reached its pinnacle in 239 when the mercenaries managed to drive the Carthaginians into their capital city and began laying siege. Desperate for aid, Carthage's leaders appealed to their longtime enemy Hero II of Syracuse, but he refused to aid them. Next, and presumably with great reluctance, Carthaginian envoys approached the Romans asking for help in suppressing the mercenaries. Rome offered its services as a mediator of the crisis, but the mercenaries, who had fought the Romans for years in Sicily, and probably thought that they were on the verge of defeating the Carthaginians at any rate, refused to accept mediation. Far from being discouraged by the refusal of the mercenaries, the Romans were now interested in intervening in the Truceless War, but not for the sake of peace in Carthage's home territory. Due to the sparse details that Polybius provides for Roman operations in 238, we don't know if an opportunistic campaign to take advantage of Carthage's weakness was planned ahead of time or approved of at the last minute. Since the Romans had been effectively invited into this conflict the year before, it is not unreasonable to assume that the Senate had decided to mount an expedition before the consuls of 238 took office. If so, then Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus was the beneficiary of this plan, since he eventually took command of the fleet that was to set sail against Carthage's remaining imperial strongholds, while Publius Valerius Falto only got his chance to command due to the machinations of the Celts north of the Po. Gracchus's campaign led him to Corsica and Sardinia, both of which he annexed in the name of Rome. Too weak to fight him, Carthage ceded the islands to the Romans without a fight. While Carthage had not done much to develop Corsica, they had a number of cities in Sardinia, and its loss was no doubt keenly felt. Gracchus's campaign was largely uneventful and did not result in enough noteworthy action for him to earn much distinction, much less a triumph. Publius Valerius Falto's campaign sounds like it was far more eventful, although neither Polybius nor Livy thought that it was necessary to provide a full or detailed account. When he initially fought the Boii and their allies in a pitched battle, Valerius was defeated. When news arrived back at Rome that the patrician consul had been defeated, The Senate voted to send a praetor, Marcus Ganucius Caepus, to replace him. However, this must have been more embarrassing than damaging, since Valerius resolved upon trying conclusions with the Celtic coalition one more time before his replacement could arrive. In the second battle, Valerius was successful and seems to have achieved a major victory which ended any threat that this Boii-led coalition may have posed. Both consuls returned home and had unremarkable post-consular careers. Following his success and safe return, Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus vowed to dedicate a temple to thank the gods, but his temple was only finished after he had died. As for Publius Valerius Falto, his victory was on a large enough scale to potentially win him a triumph, but he was denied this honor by the Senate because many of its members thought that he had acted rashly by attacking again and not honoring the Senate's wishes by waiting for his replacement to arrive. Neither of the 238 consuls served again or served as censor. However, both of them achieved things that had a lasting impact on the course of Roman history. Sardinia and Corsica eventually became Rome's second overseas colony. Sicily was the first, and Sardinia especially would see prolonged local resistance to Roman rule. In fact, Gracchus's great-grandson Gaius Gracchus would serve on Sardinia for an extended length of time due to one such minor conflict. As for Valerius, his unnamed victory over the Boii helped to kickstart Rome's efforts to expand its holdings in Italy north to the Alps, a project that would take almost 2 decades to complete. Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus's main legacy, of course, was his name, which was passed on to his son, who served as a consul in the Second Punic War. Another of his sons, Publius, did not achieve the consulship, but had a son who became Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus the Elder, a distinguished statesman during the 2nd century BCE who twice held the consulship. The name Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus became an indelible part of Roman history when his 2 great-grandsons, Tiberius and Gaius, tried and failed to use the office of tribune to reform Rome, but that is a different story for a different time.